Welcome to another episode of Alma Ensemble Summer Interview Series. We've got Sarah Wardle-Jones with us.
Hello.
Hey, Sarah. Erica Sipes.
Hey.
And I'm Michelle Smith-Johnson, and we're the co-founders of the Alma Ensemble, a chamber music collective based in Roanoke, Virginia. So we all know that variety is the spice of life. Okay, we've heard from several chamber groups, a couple pianists, new music folks, and today we have the brilliant, the amazing, the wonderful, the stunning Allie Adkins with us. She is the creative, entrepreneurial-minded artist that is the leader of the Phoenix, Arizona-based band Allie A and the Agency. Allie, welcome. How are you? What is good?
Michelle, that was a heck of an intro. You bought all the marshmallow fluff at Kroger because you're fluffing me up. But I'm having a great time. Thank you, Erica. Thank you, Sarah, for letting me come crash the party. There's always that one crayon in the box. It's like, oh, you're crashing the party. That's definitely me.
No, we're good. We're really excited that you're here. So you're originally from Virginia, right? Just south of Roanoke, Franklin County. Hey, okay. So sort of take us on the journey of what brought you to where you are. Take us on a little tour of Allie A. What brought you to Phoenix? How did Allie A and the Agency come to be?
Sure thing. So yeah, definitely y'all don't know about the 540. That's why I used to tell people at undergrad at UVA, everybody rep their area codes, in-state students. But yes, raised in Franklin County, proud graduate of Franklin County High School, proud band nerd, 6th grade, woodwinds, alto sax. I auditioned for percussion in 6th grade. I made it. My parents wouldn't let me do it because they just put a down payment on the alto sax at Radio Shack next to Roses. So I was crushed. I was so crushed. I wanted to trade in the saxophone for a snare drum. But in 8th grade, I started drumming for my church choir. So I ended up playing drums regardless, but my foundation, playing alto sax 6th through 12th grade, definitely influenced my skills, not only as a musician, but definitely as a performer. In terms of coming to Phoenix, graduated from UVA back in, and ended up moving to Chicago to work. So one of my creative idols is Tina Fey, and Tina Fey also went to UVA and is a graduate of the drama program. So at that time, Bossy Pants had just released, and I was like, I'm gonna do what Tina Fey did. And Tina Fey was like, I moved to Chicago and washed dirty towels at the YMCA at 5 a.m. And I was like, I'll move to Chicago, but I'm not gonna wash dirty towels at the YMCA at 5 a.m. So instead I ended up picking up a job at Apple because technology was like a side passion for me. I had a knack for it. In the meantime, I was doing a lot of playwriting, doing some improv classes at the iconic Second City. And then I had an opportunity to move to Phoenix with my best friend, never been to Phoenix before. I was like, how many Oreos are in Phoenix? Seems like a lot of sugar cookies, which are both delicious cookies. But I was concerned, but I said, you know what? I always wanted to go to LA regardless. And Phoenix is about 5.5 hours away from LA. So I was like, you know what? I will stay in Phoenix 1 year and then I'm kicking it to LA. Yeah, that was 7 years ago. Yeah, so Phoenix really has its hold on me. I think of Arizona as the West Coast version of Virginia. Beautiful nature, a lot of scenery, a lot of outdoors. It's just more brown. If you like brown and those earth tones, Arizona is definitely for you. Ever since moving here, I've enjoyed it very much. It has become the foundation for Allie A and the Agency, and I am a proud Arizonian. I tell people all the time, Phoenix is my home, but Virginia is my heart. That will never, ever change.
So, but you're in the band with people that are also natives of Virginia, right?
Correct.
So give us a little, like, how did this whole Allie A and the agency
Oh, that's
start?
right. So Allier and the Agency originally started as the Agency. It was a band that was formed in high school with myself, Travis Perlman, who is our current guitarist for Allier and the Agency. We have known each other since daycare. James Taylor, who is an Englishman that moved to Franklin County from England. I don't know who threw a dart at that dartboard and it landed on Franklin County. I guess we'll save that conversation for another day. Another phenomenal guitarist. And then Sheldon Jerome Johnson Jr. I used to be the drummer and the lead singer. So I was on drums and singing at the same time. I do not miss those days at all. But we would play house parties, we would play cover shows, weddings, things of that nature. When we all went our separate ways post-graduating from college, we started dabbling into some original material. And it became sort of an inspiration of like, okay, well, you know, this is cool stuff. It would be able to gig it, but you know, whatever happens, happens. So I ended up moving to Phoenix. Travis and James came to visit for a couple of months. They thought they were staying for a couple of weeks. They crashed at my place for a couple of months. They loved it. And then one day I got a phone call saying, hey, we got an apartment in Phoenix, sight unseen, we'll be there in a week. With the cat.
There you go.
Right? Wow. Like that's literally what happened.
Wow.
And we tried to get the band thing together, but it wasn't working. And then I went to go volunteer at Travis's job. He is a librarian at Perry High School, which is a high school out here in the metro area. I went to go volunteer on a Friday afternoon, working with some of the high school students just about songwriting and getting interested in the music and just opening and expressing themselves creatively. And it was just such a phenomenal time. We literally had that Dan Aykroyd, John Belushi scene in Blues Brothers when James Brown is, do you see the light? And it's like, we're getting the band back together. We just looked at each other. We're like, we're getting the band back together. And then the rest has been history ever since.
Super cool story. That's really fun. So I know that along with writing your own songs, you also manage, you do the booking, you run the logistics, basically like run the whole world. That's a lot. But then you're also, you do the creative work too with the songwriting. So I'm curious about like what your process is like and what inspires you when you're songwriting and just how you go about that.
For sure. So yes, managing a band, leading a band, attending a band is not easy in any capacity. In terms of the songwriting process, Travis and I really work together. He's kind of like my left hand, essentially, which is why I knew when we were going to go down this avenue of getting the band back together, I wanted to do it with Travis. I think it's one of the reasons why I never pursued joining a band when I moved to Chicago. And I never really pursued doing music or joining a band when I first moved to Phoenix because I wanted to do it with the people that I loved the most. I usually write in imagery. Sometimes I know what the music video of a song looks like before the song is completed. That might sound a little bit strange, but it might be because of my background with drama and with theater and production. When I write songs, I like to write them as if we were performing them live. So I'm thinking about every single part. If there's synths, if there's strings, if there's horns, what the bass line is like. Sometimes I'll just sing a riff and be like, play boom, 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 boom. I'll be like, okay, play that, loop it, loop it, loop it. Okay, throw this on there. Sometimes I know what every instrument sounds like, and I'll just be like, play it like this. And I'll let people throw in their creative ideas, and it's like, if an idea is better than the one in my head, I'll process it. I'll be like, ooh, keep that. But if you're not playing something that sounds better to me in my head, I'm like, no, play it the way I want you to play it. The other thing too is I dream about songs constantly. I know a song speaks to my spirit if I lose sleep over it consistently. If it's not hitting me, if it's not smacking me where it's like I can't stop thinking about this riff or this section or what have you, it gets to the back of the pile. So now what used to be like, okay, go into GarageBand and lay down whatever you're thinking. A lot of times I'll pull out the voice memos app on my phone and I'll sing something, or I'll write the lyrics down and I'll come back to it. And then if I'm losing sleep over it, it's like I cannot stop and do anything else until I get this out of my head. Like, for example, we have a song called Big Booty Love, and I wanted it to just be like an anthem for the thickums, right? Because Queen has fat bottom girls, and I'm like, really? You know, Freddie, you one of the goats, but I don't believe you when you sing this song. Like, that's not in your buffet, and it's cool, right? But that's just not your cup of tea. So I was sitting one day, and one of my all-time favorite rock bands is Aerosmith, and Love in the Elevator came on, and I was like, I want to Love in the Elevator, but for the thickums. And that's literally what happened with Big Booty Love. I think I listened to Love in the Elevator for about 8.5 hours, and I was like, okay, how can I phrase this out? And then the song just came to.
You're shaking your sexy thing. The fellas like a thirsty. You make a chitty chitty bang bang. Do you think you can handle it? 'Cause I ain't flat in the butt. We can ride it with the best of the out. I know when I have the party's on. Big booty love. Hey, you're rockin', hey, you're rockin', hey, you're rockin', hey, you're rockin' like big booty love. And you're rockin', and you're rockin', and you're rockin', and you're rockin' like bag of say can't be choosy. Everyone wants says big booty do that.
Everything has just gotten better and better. But I'm more of a storyteller when it comes to my music, right? Some people like to, participate in the agriculture, if you will, for inspiration. I'm such a dork. Like, I can't even do nasal spray. So like, I'm a storyteller. Like, my background, my foundation is plot. I need a beginning, middle, and end. And sometimes that works for folks. Sometimes it doesn't. It's all good in the hood. But yeah, I'm all about imagery.
That's awesome. And I would think that some of that comes from, I mean, it's hard to tell like what comes first, the chicken or the egg. Like you when you were in college, you did theater, you said, right? You did some theater and you've done some writing. So it's like, has that led to the music? I guess they just kind of work together, you think?
Absolutely. College laid down my foundation for production. So I majored in drama at the University of Virginia. I did do focus on playwriting and screenwriting. And my senior thesis, I ended up writing a one-woman show. So I was in control over everything. And having that foundation where it's required for you to do the grunt work, right? It's required for you to take a lighting design class. It's required for you to take a sound design class. It's required for you to become a dramaturg for one of the shows, or be a PA and things of that nature, or a stage manager. You really get an appreciation and understanding for how a production works. So really, it's just taking the same formula. Instead of implementing it into a theater production, you're implementing it into your band, which down the line is implemented into your live show. So everything together, I can see the lights, I can see the sounds, I can hear the buildup and the crescendos and the decrescendos and the ebbs and flows. I really like to use Dave Matthews Band's live sets as an example. 1, love Dave. 2, yes, they're from Charlottesville. 3, I did meet Carter Buford in the parking lot of a Walmart my 3rd year. Changed my life. 4,
so good.
Watching Dave Matthews. I got Dave Matthews live in Central Park as a Christmas present, the DVD.
Yeah.
I think I watched that DVD probably for 12 hours straight. And it was just watching all of these musicians do what they do best. When it's someone's time to shine, they shine. And when they come together, the recipe tastes delicious. It's like everybody knew what they were doing. So watching that and then going through a rigorous, intense drama program, and then being able to take those tools that I learned and put them into my own artwork and art forms really helped shape not only me as a musician and a writer, but definitely as a performer. Absolutely.
That's really awesome. And I have a question that it's not on the list, but oh well. I'm gonna ask it anyway.
For sure. I'm an open book.
Yay. I'm really curious because you are a writer and you are just obviously so creative and have all this inspiration. Have you had times where like that's dried up? Or you've had like writer's block and you've been like, I just don't have anything to give. I don't know what to do. And if you've been in that spot, what have you done to kind of get out of it? Or did you just like sit back and just let it happen?
No, absolutely. I think, so I'm going to answer that in two parts. So the first part is if we're in a situation where there is no deadline, like if I'm not on a time crunch, if you will. Of course, definitely have had writer's block or writer's fatigue, or if it's like, it's just not hitting me. Because sometimes what would happen is I would complete a piece just for the sake of saying I completed it, even though I knew after the bridge it was trash. Like, yes, you could repeat the chorus again, but you still need a little something and it's not smacking the way I want it to smack. So I would do something that has nothing to do with music to take my mind off of it. So as a nerd, I love video games. So sometimes I would just play a video game to take my mind off of it. And really, it would be like that Charlie Brown when he's talking to Lucy in the Christmas special, when he's like, that's it. Like literally sometimes you just have a Charlie Brown moment where it's like, that's it. And then I pause this and then go back to it. Yeah.
That's awesome. And you brought up something else that I think is really interesting that's hard for me to relate to, but I think I can learn from, and that's this. You were saying, it sounds like a lot of times when you have a deadline or whatever, you've gotten to a point where you're like, well, I've just got to get something down. I'm going to get it down, even if it's not, the best thing, whatever. But I think that's so hard for a lot of us musicians to do, because I think a lot of us are perfectionists, right?
Absolutely.
And so it's hard to get to that place where you're like, no, it's okay. I got something down. We can make it work to some degree. And then I love that fact that you have this background in improv too, which like I do not have. And I wish I did, because then I think it could be easier for us to let go.
Yeah.
At those moments and say,
right.
Yeah, let's just see what happens.
Right. Because I have a lot of people that I've worked with where it was like live production, studio production. We've had people who joined us on live sets just to be like a special guest, if you will. And they want it perfect and right and tight. And I'm a perfectionist too. The way I ended up learning to kind of let go is that just because I work well one way doesn't mean someone else works well another way. But when it comes really down to the music, an audience member is not going to remember a 16th note riff, at the 2-minute and 47-second marker, right? And it's not like I could not bring that riff back later, which is why I always talked about if we did an acoustic version, if we did a more stripped down version, if we did a more broad, huge production version, if I'm really missing that riff, I'm gonna bring that riff back. A great example is when we were in the studio this past summer working on the new album that we're going to put out sometime in the post-COVID future, God willing. So I was in the studio with the producer and I had like this it's like a very chromatic, we have this song called Rejection Infection. It's very fun. It's very fast. It's like a Van Halen Hot for Teacher in your face type of thing. So it's very chromatic. It's like a da 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 da, right? So we were doing all these chromatic stuff and I had the drums thunder, you're right. So then the producer's like, do you have to have that? And I was like, yeah, I do. And he looked at me and was like, but do you really? And Reggie, for whatever reason, was just, the pedal wasn't doing it, or the mic kept moving from the bass drum. And it was just like, he was like, Allie, this one, I get it. I don't understand. Can we just do like a bup? Can we just kind of, I was like, yeah, that's fine. Because one, Reggie was doing a single pedal, not a double pedal. It's much easier on a double pedal to do I got it, instead of doing I get it with one foot, right? Two, I could bring that back live. So my brain was like, okay, studio version, they won't understand. Live, when you've got the amps and the monitors and the thunderous drums, that bass is going to be booming. So it was a compromise for the sake of perfection that I was willing to make at that time. One, we had a time constraint. Two, I didn't want to spend 2 to 4 hours of my producer's time mixing and editing for one small little section. So for the sake of efficiency and harmony for a potential long-term working relationship, which I guess comes from my business background too. I was just like, it's not an L. It's just, the L is when people's like in slang, they say, oh, you're taking the L, you're taking the loss. I don't say it as you're taking the loss. I'm saying you're taking it for the later. We'll take it later. And I'll just implement whatever version of later is for me in whatever capacity that is. But it's very, very, very hard because we want everything to be right and tight. But if it gets in the way of productivity and efficiency and just having the music out for the sake of having the music out, you got to know what to pull, what to keep.
Even though our mediums are different. I mean, we're speaking the same language. There are so many similarities in what we do. So how do you and your band members work to create this cohesive sound that you want?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I think I like to call us AAA. We're not insured. But for AAA, I'm really lucky because of Travis. Since we've known each other, literally since Rainbow Daycare back in okay? And we've been writing and playing music together essentially since high school. That is chemistry you cannot recreate when you're bringing in new musicians. It's like trying to get flavors from simmering in a crock pot under Instapot pressure cooker time, which is how I've had to work when we decided to get the band back together. So one of the ways I focus on cohesive sound is just making sure I have musicians who have the advanced level to expert skill set level that I personally prefer to be able to achieve the long-term goals and visions of this band. So growing up musically, my foundation in music did not start picking up that Radio Shack King saxophone in 6th grade. My background started in the church with gospel music. And anybody who comes from a gospel background knows, like, this is the note. You're singing the note. You have to know that note. If you don't sing that note, the choir director, the usher, somebody's going to reprimand you. Shout out to Mrs. Florella Johnson, who is a master. She was one of the choir directors where she had her glasses and the chain hanging down, and she's looking at you, and she's singing them soprano parts and those alto parts and tenor parts. If you are wrong, you were wrong. So I take that foundation into the band today, saying, okay, you got to have the skill set level, because I can't go back to, when we were in college living in the dorm together. We don't have that type of chemistry, which is why I always revert back to Travis. That is a chemistry that you can't manufacture that. You can't go off onto the store and buy it off the shelf. So the fact that Travis and I have had all that time together and we balance off of each other so well, as long as everybody else, whether it's Pedro on bass or Reggie on drums or Jeff on saxophone, as long as we are able to be like, well, they got the skill to do what I want them to do, everything else kind of comes into place. And then from there, you're building essentially a production, a live show. So I know, based on whatever the set list is, or based on the venue we're playing, or based upon the projected demographics for the crowd, I can bob and weave things in. Kind of like how James Brown would do like turnarounds, like we call it the James Brown turnaround. Or like how Prince would just stop everybody and then he'll just call on a person and that person will just play until he just stops feel like wanting to hear them play. Or how I talked about Dave Matthews Band earlier, when you have someone like a jam band where everybody's holding down the foundation of a groove, and then someone just kind of ebbs their way into the front, does their thing, but you don't lose the groove in the back, and then you ebb your way back into the groove, and then it's someone else's turn. So for that cohesion, really, I am the base of the roux. I am the protein. I am the most important part of the meal. Everything else, the appetizers, the sides, the desserts, the beverages, they
How
are
many proteins? How
two
many proteins?
teens. Come on, 2 teens. That is an inside joke. She will explain it off camera. Okay.
Sure will.
But as long as I am here and present, everything else is interchangeable. Now, I wouldn't trade the fellas I have for anything, even a packet of toilet paper right now in this pandemic, because the other thing outside of a cohesive sound is a cohesive vision, right? Which is hard for original music because you're not a cover band. You're not playing weddings. You're not playing corporate gigs. You're not playing casinos, anything like that. So you have to be in it for the long-term vision, not the short-term immediate paycheck. It's like, I believe in you as an artist. I believe in the music this band creates. I want to be a part of that for the long haul. So that goes into having cohesiveness from personality, from temperament, from character. Those things are worth investing in because music is a skill set. You can learn a skill 1,000 different ways from 1,000 different places. But if you are not a nice person, if you are not a collaborative teammate, if you cannot handle constructive criticism, and if you are not a positive attribute to be around, whether it's rehearsal, behind the scenes stuff, shows, I don't want nothing to do with you. And I'll tell you what, Travis, Pedro, Reggie, I call us the core four. The fact that those men believe in this crazy old Black woman to take the charge to our hopefully potential long-term musical dreams of world domination, I'm humbled by it, but I also take it very, very seriously because they're sacrificing stuff on their end to be a part of this band. So I want to make sure I'm efficient with their time and it's not being wasted, but also know that I back up the words that I say with the actions that I do on stage.
I'm curious in the work that you've experienced up to this point. I have a 2-part question for you. What is the biggest surprise that you've encountered? And then if you were talking to someone who is just starting out or someone who wants to start a band, work creatively in the arts, what advice would you give them?
I would say the biggest surprise for me would be the reception to our music, AAA's music. Because the poster children for rock bands have been the Beatles, the Stones, the Doors, the Van Halens of the world, the Pink Floyds, the Journeys, all bands with Caucasian dudes. And really, if you go back to the history of rock and roll, I mean, you got Little Richard, may he rest in peace. You've got Chuck Berry, may he rest in peace. You've got a lot of history with the Black community. As we invented rock and roll, y'all just took it and you made it your own, but really you were copying a lot of stuff. Yes, there's Lenny Kravitz. Yes, there's Prince. Yes, there's Tina Turner. But really in this era, I would say outside of Brittany Howard, who's the lead singer for Alabama Shakes, and she's even more Southern rock, folk rock, Allman Brothers type. She's not like hard rock.
Right.
You don't see anybody. So I knew going down this avenue of rock music, the majority of the people in our audience were going to be Caucasian, usually Caucasian dudes, okay? And when I see after shows, when these white guys come up and they're just like, holy potatoes, what was that? And oh, the guitar and oh, your voice and it's booming and the drums, all this stuff. Honest to God, the reception to the music has been so flattering and humbling too, because when you make art, you want people to enjoy it. But the beautiful thing about art is that it's open to interpretation, right? You have people who listen to bands who sing about stuff like that, come to see our shows, and they're open and they're excited, and we can change their perspective on who sings rock music, what the presentation of the package looks like. It's like the presentation of the package might be surprising to some, but then when they open the package, they're glad that they got to see the package. They're glad that the package was delivered to them on that night. The best thing I love is if we're playing a gig and somebody's at the bar not even looking at us from Adam, and we start playing the first song and their head turns. And then we start playing the second song and then they lean over. And then we start playing the third song and then their arms are crossed. And then we start playing the fourth song and they're standing up. And then we start playing the fifth song and their head's bobbing. And we start playing the sixth song and they decide to order another drink. And then we start playing the seventh song and they're clapping. And then by the time we're packing stuff on stage, they take the time to find somebody, whether it's myself or one of the fellas, and be like, I ain't never heard of y'all, and I wasn't supposed to stay this long, but y'all smash. I love that stuff. When people are singing lyrics to songs that I don't think anybody's ever heard of, too, that's probably the other thing, too. That happened one time. We have a song called Infinite, and I was like, why in the world would anyone know the lyrics to this song? And there was a woman in the front singing the lyrics, and I was like, I almost couldn't finish the song, because I was like, she knows the lyrics to this song? That's interesting. I would have, stronger, big booty, but you're singing Infinite. Okay, I'll take it. Beggars can't be choosy. I'll take it. So that answers your first question. People liking the music. That's the biggest surprise, because you just don't know. And trust me, I have an ego, but I'm a humble hoe. I'm a humble country hoe. The second question, what would I tell folks who want to get into the arts? Man, God. With this pandemic, arts are now more crucial than ever, in my opinion. I think the best thing is just to start. And it's not even about starting and finishing it, right? It's not even about, oh, I bought this Squire guitar package from $199 at such and such retailer, and I got you lessons for 30 days and then you quit. Well, in 6th grade and 5th grade, the music teachers came to the elementary school. You got to try out each instrument. I said, I want alto saxophone, because they didn't bring snare drums because you couldn't do percussion until you did a woodwind or brass for 1 year. I tried out for percussion in 6th grade. I got it. And my parents still wouldn't let me do it. I think it's important as adult figures to watch the youth, watch the patterns and not ignore them. Because that's the one thing I do think about is, like, if my parents had trusted me in my decision making to be like, I tried out for percussion for a reason and I got in, let's feed this. Instead of looking at it as, well, I made a down payment on the saxophone, you just got to stick with that. And then it got to the point where even in high school, I was still doing different avenues. I participated in indoor drumline. I was singing in the jazz band. I was like, sax is just not for, no, well, you can't quit saxophone till you graduate high school, right? So they were forcing me, because obviously your parents want the best for you. But as an artist, right, we should have the freedom to dabble in the buffet of the arts, regardless of instrument. I know buffet is not the best reference right now, but wash your hands and wear a mask. Dive into the buffet of the arts. Pick up that instrument, Michelle, she plays clarinet, but she can also play a little bit of violin. She can play a little bit of viola. Sheldon doesn't just play alto, he can play soprano. I'm sure if you stuck a tenor or a berry in his mouth, he'd do a better job than half the people who have tenors and berries in their mouth. I'm sure you, Sarah, and you, Erica, play multiple instruments, right? So I think it's just important, if you want to get started, try everything. Because at least if you try everything, you'll know what you like and you know what you don't like. Once you start to hone down on what it is that you're really interested in, then you can go all in on the poker table and investing in that side of the passion. I would also tell people who are just getting started to write stuff down. Sometimes writing music for me is free therapy. And anybody who has gone to therapy knows they charge full price. They do not care about insurance provider. They want the full price. The card better not decline. Write everything down. I don't care if it's just, oh, the butterfly landed on this tree leaf next to the basket of apples. Write it down. Butterflies are beautiful, trees are gorgeous, and I like apple pie. Like, write it down, okay? And then the other thing I would say is don't worry about the presentation of your package. Your package is unique and special to you. Somebody will get that package delivered to their house. Somebody's going to open it. Somebody's going to love it. Okay. The AAA package it's going to be delivered to some folks' houses and they're going to say, return to the post office, return it to sender. And you know what? I will gladly take that return to sender and send it out to another potential prospective audience member who would possibly take that package and open it and love it, embrace it. Who knows? Might even drink some tea out of it with a mug, right? Like, don't worry about the presentation of the package. Try the entire art buffet. I mean, everything, especially the crab legs, but everything in the art buffet, and write it down. No matter how silly or superfluous or crazy you think it is, write it down.
You know, this is really interesting to me because this is the 4th interview that we've done, right, like this. And there are these overlapping themes. And so you just eloquently stated a different perspective of like a theme that we've seen reoccurring. Like, just do it. Just do the things. Yeah. And every successful and amazing woman that has hung out with us so far has echoed these same sentiments, you know, obviously in a different way, but it's just really cool to see the similarities of outlooks and the, I don't know, you just got to try. And that just seems to be like what we've been hearing over and over and over again, and it's worked.
Yeah, the thing too, when you're looking at a musician side versus maybe some of the other artistic avenues from like a visual standpoint, like the painters and drawers and things like that, like buying a box of colored pencils or crayons or beginner acrylic paint is much more of a potentially easier low cost investment than buying a guitar, buying a clarinet, buying a trumpet. I think those types of hurdles or a piano, come on now. You'd be surprised. Side note, you would be surprised how many listings I see on the marketplaces out here in Phoenix for free pianos, as long as you can move it. As long as you can move it. And my jaw drops. I'm like, for real? I mean, free. They're like, get it out of my house. Get it out. And the whole time I'm just sitting there like, man, there is somebody who is starting to dabble around piano at church, who can't have access to the church, you know, after school all the time because they lock the doors or whatever. If they just had something to tickle them ivories, it blows my mind. But I think those hurdles, those cost hurdles for a lot of families who have kids who express those interests in the arts early, don't see it as a long-term investment, which is why it's so critical to keep music programs in schools. Because if school is going to be the one avenue that's taking up the majority of your children's time outside of sleep, God willing, they're getting good sleep, you need to have advocates who are able to keep pressing that cause of keeping the arts around. I wish that there was a way where you could just go to, you know, a little store, whatever, and it's just like pick it up, sign it out, check it out. Like if you could check out instruments, like you could check out books from a library. And that's a big reach, but if there was ever a program that did something like that, and I was financially able to contribute, I would gladly contribute. There's a charity, a nonprofit out here called Rosie's House, which is really big with a lot of the music venues in the Phoenix area that provide musical instruments to low income families for students who have that knack for music. And it's something that really sparks a passion in me because I was blessed to have parents who were able to go to Radio Shack and get that down payment on a saxophone. I can't imagine a fellow classmate either from Rocky Mount Elementary or one of the other schools in Franklin County who would have liked to have participated in 6th grade band and could not because their parents just worked a job where it wasn't feasible for them to try it out.
For sure. Also, let's get back to you and the band. Your debut album, Allie A and the Agency. It just has such a broad scope of style, and it doesn't shy away from anything. So you talked about Big Booty Love earlier, embracing body positivity and the fun. It's upbeat, it's brass heavy. Spoiler alert, I listened to it yesterday to get pumped up for our live stream concert. But then you wrote My People Are Dying. You know, your testament to where we are right now as far as social justice issues. So do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, we can. Before we talk about My People, in terms of the broadness of the album, right? So we were at a point where we're like, we just need material out. Because what was happening was we were going to these venues to pitch like, hey, put us on an opening slot for a show. We're really great, yada, yada, yada. And they would be like, okay, well, where can I find your music? In our heads, well, we're going to play over here. Why don't you come here? And they were just like, let me know when you got some stuff, right? So we went to the studio. It was like whatever we had, we just put it out there. And I love that album so much. And we've grown exponentially from the production standpoint, everything since then. Like when you listen to the new album that's coming out, you'll be like, holy potatoes, it's night and day. Also, that album right there, it was our first time in a studio. It made me very humble about the grinding process from the production side, the tracking, the mixing, the mastering. It was a huge grind, but what we were able to achieve, especially with the budget that we had, there was an article that talked about the average independent band's budget for a self-made album usually runs about $10,000. And we probably spent like close to 80% less than that, just due to like efficiency, the pre-production work, like the churn and burn type of method. Now, we planned out for the last album we recorded, we did 6 months of pre-production. For that album, we did like 4 weeks of pre-production. And we had a different drummer at the time. We had to bring in a studio drummer 2 weeks before the session. Because again, when I say I'm doing something, I'm doing it. I don't care if y'all don't like it. We going to the studio. You either going to be there, you're not going to be there. But in terms of My People Are Dying, man, I really wish that song was irrelevant. I wish we were at a place where that song, the meaning would not be valid behind it. Right. I wrote that song because it was in my spirit at the time that we were living in, where I was just reflecting on myself as like a woman of color in America, with my fellow brothers of color in America, and what I would feel like if I had a son, and how to navigate the world with that. My people are dying. Why are you still lying? Hail to the grave, you'll always be a slave. Why are we still trying? My people are very cinematic piece. I actually like to listen to it, the instrumental version. I listen to the instrumental version a lot, just because of the ebbs and flows with the dramatic and the themes. My People Are Dying is definitely a great example of a song where you want to talk about theater influence in terms of production, things like that. But yeah, it's a song relevant to the time. I think that's also one of the great things about music. I used to be afraid to sing that song live. And it was one of these things where I had to like reflect on it, like, oh gosh, you recorded it in the studio, but you won't perform it live. In our album release show, we brought in a friend of ours who's a special guest to play violin. And it was just so moving. I was so moved by her playing violin. I was like, oh, wait, I need to actually bring the cue in so we could start the song. Like, if it was up to me, I would have just had a spotlight and let her have like a 5-minute solo. I was like, well, God will be here all night. But that's the power of music, where it's like, I'm not even thinking about the meaning of the song. And if the audience who's watching us play this song are going to like it, I'm like, man, this is a bomb solo. That's the great thing about it. It shows a variety in terms of themes that we talk about with different pieces, whether it's happy, whether it's sad, whether it's melancholy. But at the end of the day, it was a piece of art that was speaking to my spirit. I wanted to get it out. The fellows in the band were like, we got your back. And that's all that matters to me at the end of the day. Everybody has some type of, people want to call it protest music. Everybody has some type of protest song or anti such and such song. You know, we can all dance to Rock the Cash Bar, but if you listen to them lyrics, right, I love doing stuff like that. The cinematic scope of the music in that song enraptures you enough to where it's like, if you start to process the lyrics, you're like, that's some deep stuff right there. But it is one of my favorite songs.
It's incredibly powerful. I mean, I really like the whole album. But you know, it's
thanks, Michelle.
It's really good. You did a really good job.
Paid for by. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Okay, now it's time for the grab bag question of the interview. So we're gonna skip the first part of that, and we need for you to tell us about the time you met Oprah, please.
Who's Oprah?
Come on.
If she sees that.
Oh wait, we're at
paid for, but I'm just kidding. So Oprah just moved to Chicago, didn't have a place to live, didn't have a job. It was Oprah's last season of her taping her show. I said, why not? I'll go ahead and throw my name in with my best friend's name for some tickets. They got back to us. We got tickets. The day of that taping, I had my 4th and final interview at Apple with like the regional Chicagoland manager, such and such, like the most important person that you could interview with. I said, look, y'all, I really want this job, but I got Oprah tickets. They were like, BS. I said, no, I'm not trying to ditch. I have Oprah tickets. I will prove it to you any way I can prove it to you. I just don't know what time I'm going to be able to make this interview. So we get to the Oprah show. We had read some forms online of like, okay, how do they do seating and what's your best chance of meeting and yada, yada, yada. So I had on like this colorful teal top, you know, with my caramel Twix snickerdoodle skin and whatnot. And then my other friend had on this bold color top. I'm like, okay, maybe the colors will pop. They'll put us in the front. We ended up at the end of the second row in the center. So we were smack dab in the middle. And they seat everybody. Oprah comes out. She's dripping. I mean, just dripping in diamonds. She owned the mine in Africa because she dripping in diamonds and pearls. Marilyn Monroe don't know because Oprah bought out the factory. Okay, dripping in diamonds. Everybody's like, ah. They had this author as the guest for the day talking about how they were kidnapped and they wrote a book about it. I was snoozing bad because I couldn't get sleep the night before because I was so excited. This woman talked about this interview. I'm telling you, they had the AC on 65. I was literally like, but I was like, I'm here. I said, Lord, forgive me. And I had a job interview after on the other side of the city. So Oprah does a taping. Then there was a different episode where they needed to come back and do some B-roll. So they reset up the stage. So we did B-roll. So we actually got in 2 shows, not 1. And then someone way up, like the top like top of stage right, like the high stage right corner, raised their hand and they said, oh, my sister was supposed to come. And she got to the airport, she broke her foot, she couldn't get on the flight. And could you just tell her hello, or could I take a picture, tell hello? So she took down her information and she said she was going to send her a bouquet of flowers. Then another woman over in the far, far corner, she was like, girl, I just want a picture. And she was like, okay. And then I don't know what happened, but my hand just went up. And I was like, oh my God, are we doing this? Are we doing this? Are we doing this? It's like, Marilyn, you're doing it. You're doing it. I was the last, she only called on 3 people. I was the 3rd person she called on. When I tell you, I don't know if you've ever seen, like in Ghost, like that out of body experience, literally my entire soul went out of my body and I was looking at my exoskeleton like, you're a fool. I was like, I just moved here. I just graduated. I got a one-woman show I'm trying to put on in Chicago. When you read my play, I got it right here. I'll give it to you. Please, you got me, please. Literally, tears, everything. Whoever finds that clip, I hope to God it never happens. But you want something that'll ruin me? That clip will ruin me. Right? And all these women are, right? My best friend's looking at me like, oh my God, you're a fool. So she was like, first of all, I'll gladly take a picture of you with you. Second of all, I really don't read other people's work because they'll accuse me of like copyright and trying to steal stuff. I'm not saying you would do that, but give me your information. I'll try to put you in touch with some people to see if you can get your show off the ground. So she came over, took this picture with her photographer, all the stuff. It was really nice. Like a couple of weeks later, they mailed us a couple of copies of the photo with the letterhead and everything, the Harpo stuff. I still have it to this day. After the show, of course, it was about to be evening rush. I was about an hour and a half, no lies, I was 2 hours late to my job interview at Apple.
Oh, no.
And they were just kind of looking at me. I said, look, I got a picture with Oprah. Give me the job. I'll show you the picture. I'll sign it in blood. Like, whatever. I need this job. The next day, Apple hired me. And I showed my manager the picture. She couldn't believe it. The funny thing is, a few months down the line, so at Apple, I was a trainer, so I would teach people like how to use applications, and sometimes I would do Genius Bar work. I had a one-on-one training session, and this woman came up to me and tapped me on the shoulder in the middle of a training session. She's like, excuse me, I don't mean to interrupt you, but were you on Oprah? And I looked at her, and I was like, yeah. She was like, you took a picture with her. Did she get your show off the ground? I said, no, I haven't heard anything back yet. I said, you know what? You look really familiar. I think you're in the picture that Oprah took with me. I pulled out the photo, and this woman was in the background in the audience section. She was like smiling like she was posing for the picture. She couldn't believe it. She couldn't believe it. She was a clothing shop owner in Milwaukee and was at that Apple store to pick up something. And I sent her that picture, and we became friends.
Wow.
That is just dear. Like, that is so wholesome.
Small world, folks. Small world.
Well,
But yes, that is the adventures of Allie and Oprah.
That's the best story in the whole entire world. Like, you went from moving to a new city, no job, no house, to having a bomb apartment. We didn't even talk about that later interview. Bomb apartment, job at Apple, and you met Oprah.
So you want to know something else funny? I was doing a side job while I was waiting to interview for Apple because I had submitted an application online and didn't hear anything back. So I took my cover letter and resume, customized it for every Apple store. I physically mailed every single Apple store in the Chicagoland area. I think it was like 12 stores. And 3 stores got back to me for interviews. Because I had read that tactic on a Reddit thread, and it worked. But while I was doing interviews at Apple, I was working at a job, $9 an hour, just to be able to keep food in the fridge, selling tickets for the Phoenix Symphony.
I don't even know what to say. Serendipitous.
If you could have a cocktail with any lead singer, living or past, who would it be and why?
Ooh, definitely Prince. And all the drinks would be purple. It'd be purple everything. I would, honest to God, I would want to hear his side of stories. Honest to God, I wouldn't even talk to him about why are you just everything you touch turns to gold. I want to hear about the behind the scenes Hollywood stuff, like someone tried to touch me and security had to go, like, I want to hear the kiki kitchen table talk stuff. Like, let's just have a filet and a lobster tail and some potatoes and some purple Cosmos wherever, and just tell me the stories. I will put a zipper on my mouth. I'll listen all day. He's a genius. Honestly, that's another DVD concert that really influenced like how I wanted to be a live performer, which was Prince live at the Aladdin when he had his residency in Las Vegas. He had Sheila E. and he had Maceo Parker on stage, like all these old cat legends, not Sheila, but like horn section and stuff. And just like the turnarounds and getting the audience, and he would be like, Chad, turn the house lights up. You talking to the lights guy. I turn the house lights up, you know, it's like just grooving. Chad, turn the house lights up. Chad, turn the house lights up. I'm just like, and don't get me wrong, I know he took it from James Brown, but it's just like Prince doing it with the scarf and everything. Like, yeah, the stories would be priceless.
Okay, I think it's my turn, right? What is your favorite thing about living in Phoenix?
Ooh, that's really a good question, because as I talked about it earlier, it's really Arizona is truly, in my opinion, the West Coast version of Virginia. I do like the fact about the cost of living. It is definitely on the side of affordable. I think the marketing tactics with the triple-digit heat in the summer kind of deter some folks, but really, if you have great functioning AC and either your own swimming pool or someone's swimming pool to jump into, you can really make it work. I also like the close proximity to other major cities. You're 4.5 hours from Las Vegas. You're 5.5 hours from LA and San Diego. You're 12 hours from San Fran, and that's just by car. So you have very quick plane rides if you wanted to all the other major cities. They have every single major sports team. There's a lot of opportunity and growth happening in Phoenix. And I think a lot of people sleep on Phoenix, which is what I love. Because when people stop sleeping on Phoenix, that means more y'all gonna come here and I'm be like, go away. Shoo, fly, shoo. So it's humble enough for me as the country humble hoe to have like that peace and that quiet that I like, but the access to modern amenities, being 5 minutes from anything and everything I could possibly want or need, or being able to deliver something with a touch of a button, having that type of access that you don't always have in a Franklin County. I do love it. I do love it. Plus Sedona. Sedona is not Phoenix. Sedona is definitely my favorite place in the state. It's right underneath Flagstaff, which is like the bottom part of the Grand Canyon. A lot of celebs like to go there. It's like this very peaceful, tranquil, if you're into crystals and self-help and stuff like that. Great hiking trails. There's like this lookout spot I always go to if I just need to unplug and time out, pray and whatever. I love Sedona. But yeah, Arizona's where it's at. It really is. I'll see you in your bikini real soon, Erica.
I was going to say, I'm out there right now.
Okay, last question. Post-COVID, dream vacation, where are you going?
Do you mean post-COVID, everybody's open, or post-COVID, there's a vaccine and we're happily ever after?
We just went to Utopia, money's no object, your dream vacation. Where are you going to go to kick it?
Honestly, probably, I'm a simpleton, probably Vegas. Probably Vegas. That's my secret little getaway. It's quick, it's easy, it's, something could be in the water, I would love to be in Hilton Head Island, just unplugging, turning off with some crab legs. That would be great. That would be great. But Dave Matthews sang the cover, "Don't Drink the Water." I don't know if I can drink the water yet, so Maybe Vegas, no buffets. I don't care what they say, no buffets.
Right.
At the poker table at the Bellagio, just shooting the bull, or you know, Chippendales, or you know. I'm just kidding. I wouldn't do Chippendales.
Wouldn't you?
I'm proud. No, I'm a party of one type of person. I don't like.
Oh, okay.
But you know, if it's at Hilton Head Island, Vegas, unplugged, shades on, I'm fine.
That's so good. Allie, you're so inspiring. If you're watching this interview and have not heard Allie and Agency, what are you doing with your life? Her
Hopefully
voice
staying
is
home and washing hands.
soulful. What you can find your music on where? Spotify.
All platforms. You just type
all
in the band
platforms. On your website too, right?
Yep, allieandagency.com.
And you guys have merch.
We
right?
do have merch.
Look at this mug. Look at it.
We need to bring those. Were limited edition. We need to bring those back.
Oh.
We actually scratched that. We are bringing those back. We're gonna do new SKUs for the upcoming album. So yes, we are doing some COVID specials. But yeah, allieandagency.com, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all music streaming platforms, wherever you take your ears for your music listening pleasure and heart's desire. We'll see you there.
It was so good to hang out with you today. You're such an inspiring, just badass, and we love you to pieces. Keep doing you, girl. It's unbelievable.
You know, Michelle, Sarah, Erica, y'all keep doing what you're doing. I love it. I love it on the West Coast because it's just one of these things where it's like, oh, there you go again. And what you're doing is very important. Remember, it's about not the presentation of the package. It's about the package being delivered to as many people as possible. It's about exposure. Sometimes you don't know who's going to be watching you or sees that video and is going to be exposed, be inspired to do something. It's just like with Lizzo playing the flute. Imagine how many people now want to learn how to play flute because Lizzo was twerking and stuff with it. So keep doing what you're doing. I'm definitely a fan from near in spirit, but afar physically. And I've had a fantastic time, and thank you for letting me crash the party.